Animal Rebellion, which is an offshoot of Extinction Rebellion, have been disrupting the milk supply in the UK by drilling holes into the tyres of trucks. Look at this. That's going to stop it moving. Police have arrested 21 people now. They say they're opposed to animal farming. Are they right to strike at milk farms? Nina Mishkov.
Look, I think this is a bit extreme, actually. I can understand how people have very passionately held views and that they have an entire democratic right to protest. And I have agreed with a lot of the protests. But I think when they start damaging property, that's not right.
And it could be a danger there as well.
It could be a danger. The thing is, you know, the whole business with dairy, you suddenly think, why dairy? What's the problem with dairy? But it comes down to, I think, you know, animal husbandry and how the animals are treated.
Let's talk to one of the activists, right? And he can explain. Joel Scott-Halkes from Animal Rebellion. Why dairy, Joel? Why are you on this now?
Well, thanks so much for having me on the show, Jeremy. So the reason that we're disrupting the dairy industry, which is part of one of the most destructive and cruel industries the planet has ever known, the animal farming industry, is because we're calling on the government to meet two very simple demands to help us survive the climate crisis.
So, yeah, well, what are the demands before we get on to the downside of this?
Yeah, well, thanks for asking. So our two demands are backed by science, backed by leading scientists around the world. And we're calling firstly for the government to help farmers and fishing communities transition to a plant-based food system and away from animal farming completely. And secondly, because this will free up a huge amount of land in the UK. Currently, unbelievably, 51% of the UK is used for animal grazing and feed. So we're asking the government to rewild that land instead, which would help suck carbon out of the atmosphere and reverse our plummeting biodiversity.
But I hear you, but none of that justifies law breaking. None of it.
So what we're doing today and what we're going to continue doing until the government meets these demands, we've got ordinary people, we've got nurses, we've got delivery drivers, we've got receptionists, we've got teachers taking civil disobedience, something that's happened throughout history from Martin Luther King to the suffragettes to Gandhi.
This is proven time and time again
change politics.
I'm talking about the drilling of lorry tyres. It's not a good thing, is it?
Well, the destructiveness of the dairy industry means that this kind of action is proportional. What we're talking about here is essentially disabling weapons of mass destruction. The meat and dairy industry has torched our planet. It is directly responsible for the heat waves that we're seeing this year. It's directly responsible for 60 British businesses and homes going up in flames after we broke the temperature record.
Hang on, Joel, let our guests come in.
Joel, very simply, and good morning to you, you're calling on the government to do two things. And yet, on your website, your justifications for these acts of violence and destruction of property are because you say you won't stand for Parliament to change the law, you won't even stand for councils. And you claim it's because you won't get elected because of the system. Why are you putting violence apart from putting your beliefs in front of the public and seeing if they back you or not at an election?
Well, I think firstly, it's really important to note that actually by the government's own manifesto, which is pledged to get to net zero by 2050, the science is absolutely clear that a massive reduction in meat and dairy is necessary.
So at the moment, Joel, you're not answering. I'm an expert in avoiding questions,
Come on, Joel, you've got to answer the question.
Why are you not putting your arguments to the test of democratic vote rather than your own willful violence?
Yeah, and absolutely. And in fact, actually, this has been tried for a long time. So we have done, we're part of a wider movement. We've sent letters to the government. We've protested peacefully.
You haven't stood for Parliament, you haven't stood for council, where you could put it to the test of the voters.
Well, in fact, actually, I mean, the Green Party is actually very much on board with the policies that we're pushing. And we are actually on board with the government's own advisors. The governmental system here is failing itself democratically. Our democratically elected government had a food commission, a food strategy led by Henry Dimbleby, which made very clear recommendations. We have to start getting rid of meat and dairy, and the government hasn't done it. The democratic system has failed.
What if people want to drink milk? I mean, you know, or they want to cook with milk. Are they not allowed to anymore because of you?
Yeah, so at the moment, the government is manipulating the food system by pouring $3 billion a year into subsidising meat and dairy, whilst allowing plant-based milks to be incredibly expensive by comparison. Despite that, soya milk and normal dairy milk are actually now the same price. Sometimes soy is even cheaper. But we're not calling for individuals here to change, and we're not trying to guilt or shame anyone. We're calling for the government to stop wasting billions of pounds of taxpayers' money when they could be instead going into a better future.
Let's take calls. Okay, let me let Nina come in, and I'll take some calls. But you could please try and answer the questions. Nina.
I was going to say, Joel, I actually am non-dairy, and I have been for decades because I have a slight intolerance. I don't drink milk. But will you not recognise that, for instance, until we get to this Valhalla of yours, which is everything's green and we're all eating plants, at the moment, with the financial crisis, that milk is a wonderful, relatively inexpensive way for people to get nourishment and protein into their children. And what you are suggesting, it cuts right across that. I mean, it's not like, it's not. I can understand vegetarianism. You don't want an animal to be killed, and I am all for. I'm anti-cruelty to animals, but at the moment, it seems to me that producing dairy, milk from a cow, getting milk from a cow, is a far less worrying option than many things.
Isn't it quite natural? Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you engaging on this point, actually. So allow me to just quickly describe how dairy is produced. So a cow is a mammal, so just like a human, it only produces milk when it has a child. So for this to happen, a dairy cow has to be forcibly impregnated. It's a pretty violent process, actually involves the farmer putting its hand up the cow's anus and inserting semen into its cervix. And after that, almost instantly, its child is taken away from it 24 hours later, put into a crate. And if that's a boy calf, well, that turns into meat. It gets sold for veal or after a short and suffering life. That animal is then impregnated over and over again. And even though that beautiful, beautiful dairy cow could live for 25 years. I'm sorry, it just makes me so emotional. 25 years this animal could live, but it dies, is slaughtered at 5 or 6 years because it is no longer profitable after it has been forcibly impregnated over and over again. There is nothing natural about this. And 70% of the world doesn't even drink milk. This is not natural, it's cruel and destructive.
Let's get some calls and people can speak direct to you. John in Kent, what would you like to say to Joel?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with him. I think dairy is very cruel. Calves are separated from their mothers after a few weeks. And then, the males are often exported for veal industry, in which the calves are, often tethered in the dark.
We may all agree with that, John. The issue is whether it's acceptable to drill out the tyres on a truck to stop milk moving around.
Well, you've got to say which is the lesser of two evils.
Are you in animal rebellion yourself?
I'm not. One of my friends is, and she's, passionate about it, both from the climate point of view. She actually rescues. She's got some rescue animals as well. One of the cows that she rescued had really swollen udders because the tight milking machines, and it would have been very, it also had this massive udder, so it kind of struggled to walk because they're bred that way.
John, thank you. Christine in Aberdeenshire, hello.
Hello.
What do you think?
As a beef farmer's wife, if we didn't eat the beef and drink the milk, cattle would become extinct. They're big animals. You can't have them as a pet. Farmers aren't working a 40-hour week. It's 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. Even as a beef farmer, if we've got a poorly beast, he's out with it. And we adore, his grandfather bought the farm. We sit and watch them for hours when he's in.
Yeah.
I've got them. They're actually through the window next to the TV.
And people say, farmers are wealthy and everything. Actually, a lot are very hard pressed. Is that right?
Yeah. We farm 300 acres. He's only just retired from his other job that kept us going, which he's been doing since he was 15. He's 64. But it's hard work. Okay,
Joel, the people who are producing the milk are doing good, solid, honest, hard work, like Christine and her husband.
Yeah, and we are 100% on the side of farmers here, and farmers have been dealt a terrible blow by this government over and over again. The subsidy system that we've got right now is pushing them towards a cliff edge that is unsustainable. The dairy industry's head itself said 4 years ago that the dairy industry is facing a demographic time bomb because people are shifting to plant-based milks. 4 in 10 people in Britain, 37%, buy plant-based milks once a week, and that number's just growing. So that's why we're calling on the government to pay farmers better, support them better, because they're so integral to this brilliant country, and they could be doing plant foods, and they could be rewilding land and being paid by us to be part
Joel,
of this.
if you're winning the argument,
Yeah.
if you think you're winning the argument like that, I ask my question again. Why are you persisting on violent interventions damaging property if you think all these statistics mean you're winning the argument? I mean, it's outrageous, really. If you're that popular, go and stand for election. Otherwise, why don't you stop causing criminal damage?
Well, I'm really delighted you think we're winning the argument. Thanks so much for that. And again, as I've stated, the democratic system, people have actually put these ideas forward. The government itself has actually commissioned a food strategy. I'll say this again, that food strategy said we need to reduce meat and dairy. The government has ignored it. So the system you're advocating for has tried.
Better credibility. It really is as simple as that.
You've got to engage, Joel, with this issue
It's
of
just waffle.
Committing crime, because none of what you said justifies crime.
Let me come in on the crime front.
Well, if you
could. On the crime front, I totally agree that it is absolutely the last thing that any of these people want to do. Teachers, delivery drivers, engineers, we've got people off from the military who are taking part in the actions this week. No one wants to have a criminal record to do this. But this is the level of disruption that is necessary in the planetary emergency that we're facing. We're talking about the breakdown of civilization.
Nothing justifies breaking the law in that respect. Everybody has the right to protest peacefully, and I would support you. I mean, I can't do much. I don't buy battery hen eggs. I mean, I buy free-range eggs. You probably say I shouldn't eat eggs at all. I don't eat, but I'm all for the welfare of
animals. You're being driven away by this, are you?
Well, the thing is, and I think Nick's right. Take this passion and do it properly. Go and make a protest by putting yourself forward and putting your views to the democratic process.
We've got Linda in Derry. Hi, Linda.
Hello.
What's your question for Joel?
It isn't a question; it's a statement. I have friends, and I've had friends for years. I'm 64. I'm proud of it. And I've had friends over the years who are vegan, who are vegetarians, and they know I love my meat and everything. Now, over the past few years, I've been found out that I have Crohn's. 90% of the vegetarian food, and I can't touch any of the vegan-made products. They're completely out of my diet. I am stuck with eating meat, carrots, and potatoes, and dairy products, thank heaven. I am a milkaholic. I love my milk, and I love my cows.
Right.
I love cows. I love all animals. And I am thankful that England does, on a whole, take very good care of their animals. And the only thing I don't like, I'm an anarchist at heart. So I love protesting. It's a human right to protest. The thing is you have no right to inflict your beliefs illegally by damaging property or preventing me from getting the nutrition and the food I need to have to stay alive.
Thank you, Linda. Pauline in London, hello.
Hello.
What do you think?
Well, I think these sort of people should go to farms, live on a farm for a while, because my father was on a farm from 15 till he retired at 70. He knew every cow's name in the herd. They all loved him. They all followed him everywhere. And they're out in the fields all summer, and it's only winter they go into barns and they have hay and silo. They are treated well.
Yeah, Joel, we're missing this, aren't we? There are many, many farmers who love their animals.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And I think the farming community is the heroes of this story, and they're the people that we need to rely on as we transition into the plant-based future that we need to survive the climate crisis. And that is why the government is failing them so bad at the moment. At the moment, the average livestock farm, as we call an animal farm, gets 90% of its profits from the taxpayer. So it's entirely up to government to steer them in the direction that they want. But at the moment, as I've said before, they're steering them towards a cliff edge. Other countries are waking up to this. The Netherlands is massively reducing its number of cattle because it knows it can't meet its climate targets without it. Sooner or later, the axe is going to fall somewhere. And if the government doesn't help farmers transition now, it's only going to make it worse for these absolutely vital people in our economy.
Thank you. We're not 95% of that we're not really questioning. We're just questioning the crime. Pauline, thank you for your call. Thank you, Joel Scott-Halkes, as well, from Animal Rebellion. Right, we'll move on after the break.